Welcome back to World Religions, a video series to accompany a semester-long Survey of World Religions course at the college level, specifically to accompany the textbook A Short Introduction to World Religions, edited by Christopher Partridge. Occasionally, I add additional information or my own views. Chapter 10, South American Indigenous Religions. This is a map of South America with the prevailing religions in national subdivisions, shown as lighter or darker colors depending on the percentage of the population in that region that identifies with the prevailing religion there. Red is Roman Catholic, so the darker the red, the higher the percentage of Roman Catholics. Blue is Protestant Christian, and the tan brown are the indigenous religions. As you can see, there's only a few areas that have brown as the predominant religion. So, for example, along the Guyana coast, along the north coast of South America, and in the northwest Amazon basin. So this is near the northwest of the continent, around the Baniwa people. And that's about it. Nevertheless, there are other indigenous religions scattered throughout South America. They just don't form a majority of the national subdivision where they are. And there's many indigenous groups. Only a handful are labeled on this map. These are the ones that are mainly used as examples in this video. So for example, the Wai people along the northern Guyana coast, the Baniwa of the northern part of the Amazon River Basin, the Machiganga of the Andes, really the eastern edge of the Andes, at the very western edge of the Amazon River Basin, where it meets the Andes Mountains in western South America. And further south, we have the Guarani in Paraguay, the Toba in northern Argentina, and the Tehuelche in southern Argentina, in Patagonia. Stories about the beginning of time and the creation of the universe often follow basic patterns. There is often a primordial past with great upheavals and cataclysms like massive floods, fires, or other violent reshapings of the universe. The creation stories tend to fall into two main types. Number one, the world is deliberately created by a god or gods. Number two, the world is an unintended result of the actions or interactions of the gods and their offspring. With regards to the former, the Guarani people have a story about their god Tupa, the high god who created the world, humanity, and two other gods, Anga Tupiri and Tau, the spirits of good and evil, respectively. There's also often a prominent role for cultural heroes who are regarded as ancestors of humans. Among the Tehuelche, they have a story of an ancient evil giant named Nosethedge, who ruled other creatures as a tyrant until his son Elal was born. Nosethedge actually tried to kill his son, but he was saved by his grandmother, a mouse actually. His mother was sort of a mouse woman. And Elal was able to grow big and strong and overthrow his father. In the picture, you can see him flying away on his friend, a swan named Ka'ogne. Space and cosmology often has a sacred dimension. So there's a sacred metaphysical structure of the cosmos, typically with different worlds or realms where different types of spirit beings live. But the number of levels, the number of worlds will vary from culture to culture. A very common cosmology, this is worldwide, is the three-world cosmology. In South American indigenous religions, we see that among the Machiganga, where they have an earth as a middle world between a heavenly world above of gods and a subterranean world below. The Baniwa have a four-part cosmology. So earth, the underworld, and two more worlds. Number one, a lower other world that's adjacent to Earth, and a more distant other sky. The YY have a five-world cosmology, and a group called the Kogi have a nine-world cosmology. Some peoples also divide the Earth or the middle world laterally. In other words, not vertically, but horizontally into different realms. So among the Ava Chiripa, they have a land without evil that's regarded as a distinct part of the earth realm. And there are also various parts of Earth that can be set apart as sacred places, like sacred mountains, lakes, certain dense forests, or mythical places. There's often an attempt for human spaces or other small scale physical spaces to match or reflect the overall cosmology. So, this is having the small world, the microcosm, like an individual village, reflecting in its structure the cosmos as a whole, the large world or macrocosm. You see similar concepts in religions worldwide, where often a temple or church will have features that make it a kind of microcosm. The picture is a statue of Cosmank, who's a Soort or underworld spirit of the Ona people, giving you an example of the idea that some of these worlds have specific types of beings associated with them. It's common in South American indigenous religions to conceive of the individual self or person as a microcosm of the universe or cosmic order as a whole. It's also common to have a view of multiple souls, or you could say components of the soul or self. Among the Waiwais, some of the Guarani, and the Toba, there's a theory of two souls or components of the self. Among the Avacharipa, Machigenga, and Guarani, there is a view of three souls. And these soul components or parts can function to preserve personal identity during altered states like sleep or death. So the Machigenga say that during sleep, the free soul roams around. The Toba say that the image soul roams while a person sleeps. The Waiwai say that the I soul ascends to the realm of Kapu upon death. Shamanic trance is also often explained or analyzed through the actions of part of the soul. The Waiwai speak of trance as soul flight. So these soul theories allow for relations between people and other spheres of existence, both during life and after death. There's a wide variety of supernatural beings that you find in indigenous religions in South America. Three main categories: the remote gods that are high gods or creators, such as Kooch among the Tehuelche and Yandaruvusu among the Guarani. There's also often a pantheon of lesser deities, such as Kuruten, the thunder god of the Tehuelche, and Pelek, which is a category of night spirit among the Toba. Now, these lesser deities are less remote than the high gods, so they're actually more involved in the daily practice of the religion. They're often connected to celestial, climatic, totemic, or other routine phenomena, where totem is like some spirit or animal connected to a tribe or group. And then there's the lesser spirits that are even more local. Spirits of animals, plants, elements like water, like springs or pools, and deceased humans or ancestors. These are actually the most commonly encountered. They can influence many aspects of life, personal, social, etc. They tend to be neither wholly good nor wholly evil, but can have either role depending on a person's relationship with them. One example of one of these lesser spirits is the Pombero, which means hairy feet in the Guarani language. So this is a spirit who can be relatively harmless, but they sneak around at night. They can sometimes cause trouble, and they sometimes stalk or accost women. But there's also stories of if they're fed, they can become friendly and helpful to a family. Shamans play a major role in most South American indigenous religions. Among the Baniwa, for example, serious illnesses are believed to be caused by spiritual attacks of some kind, which can be caused by a sorcerer or shaman. Sometimes shamans are the same people as sorcerers. They become sorcerers when they use their powers to curse or cause harm to others. And there's also like mythical sorcerers or witches that don't really exist but are believed by people to be causing illnesses. Illness can also be caused by violating taboos, such as those centering around food, personal hygiene, or social interactions. So, in general, shamans are the main agent or intermediary between humans and spirits. They're both an outsider because they are different from other social roles. They're in a way outside of the human world, outside of the normal social connections. They are in the spirit world. So they're marginal, and yet they are present in society. Thus, they have these two sides to them. They can function as intermediaries. They cure illnesses, but they also play a central role in a lot of festivals and rituals in communities, such as at the time of the harvest, rites of passage or initiation into adulthood, such as at the occasion of female menarche or becoming sexually mature, male coming of age ceremonies, hunting rituals, and they also function to help mediate political disputes, to adjudicate controversies, things of that nature. Shamanic knowledge consists of things like memorizing the structure of the cosmos, the different worlds, the types of beings that live there, knowing the techniques of how to attain ecstasy, trance states, or use dreams and visions to visit other worlds, how to perform the rituals needed to summon spirits or communicate with them, or rituals that will guarantee healing. And they can get this knowledge from their initiation or training period, their apprenticeship after they've been initiated, and then just from their years of experience while practicing as shamans. You can see in the picture a shaman from the Amazon region, which still has a bunch of indigenous religions practice. So in some cultures, there are multiple types of shamans. Sometimes there's just one type, but there can be multiple types. So for example, among the Hivaro and the Wakuenai, there are two types. Among the Ishir, the Winikina Warao, and the Dasana, there are three types of shamans. So the general ways that the shamans would be distinguished, for example, is if they are mainly healers or if they know rituals that can cause harm. So this would be sort of equivalent to the shaman versus sorcerer distinction. But in practice, sometimes it is the same people doing both. It just depends. Also, different types of shamans can journey to different supernatural realms, so thus interacting with different classes of spirits. Or a particular shaman may specialize in relating to a particular spirit. And also in some cultures, a type of shaman may specialize in a specific hallucinogen, like ayahuasca, which we'll return to shortly. In the picture is a half-moon altar from an opi, which is a house of worship in the Guarani culture. So in general, in order to become a shaman, you have to go through a long initiation and apprenticeship. Who is eligible for this process varies by culture. Among the Putumayo, for example, the role of shaman is always inherited from a parent. Among the Avacharipa, future shamans are actually selected out of the population by current shamans. So they select who they want to train. The nature of shamanic apprenticeships varies. It does usually involve some tests or trials of some kind and last for years. The exact number of years, though, can vary. Among the Machigenga, the Siona, and the Chiquitano, for example, it's less than a 5-year-long apprenticeship. Among the Kogi, the Arikune, and the Talipong, it's more than 10 years. So what does this period involve? It can involve periods of isolation as well as instruction, difficult trials or ordeals, disciplinary regimes, being marginalized from society, abstaining from sex, emetic purgation, such as consuming substances that induce vomiting, narcotic disruption to sleep and hygiene by consuming different narcotics. So shamans live in the margins of society and even of human existence, and this is kind of to get them closer to the spirit realm, if you will. You'll notice from the picture of this Guarani shaman that he's holding a cross, and it is indeed common to mix Christianity with indigenous traditions in South America. There are a couple types of spirits that shamans tend to work with. One is guardian spirits. These are allies of the shaman, but they typically occupy a higher strata or level of the cosmos. These will be sources of protection and specific information about the causes of an illness or of a social problem. The shaman must generally enter into a dream, trance, or vision in order to communicate with them. To me, this is reminiscent of the role of God, angels, and saints in Catholic and Orthodox Christianity. these are powers from above, but they can be invoked or venerated in rites of exorcism. So you can see this in general among Christians performing an exorcism of a demon, an evil spirit. They'll typically try to get help or guidance from God, or in Catholicism and Orthodoxy, specifically from saints and angels. And to me, this is broadly reminiscent of shamanistic practice. Of course, there are differences there. The Christians are monotheistic, for example, while the shamans are generally animist. So different theology, but similarity in practice. Auxiliary spirits are similar, but they're more closely associated with the shaman himself. They can be connected to particular animals or plants. They can believe to reside within the shaman's body or with some plant that they're using as medicine. The spirits can play a diagnostic role, so they can help figure out the source of a spiritual problem. They can also help function as part of the cure for the illness, like with an herb, for instance. And the shaman, though, often has a relation of reciprocity and exchange with these helper spirits, with these auxiliaries. So, for example, the shaman may give the spirit a hallucinogen or a narcotic agent such as tobacco or ayahuasca as part of a gift exchange. To me, this is a bit similar to beliefs about guardian angels among some Christians, where they may believe a particular angel resides with or near a person at all time. The difference is it's usually only the shaman that has access to these auxiliary spirits. The ritual exchange is often going to be a part of a chant or dance that is used for a healing ceremony or other solution to the spiritual problem. So again, tobacco, for example, can be used as a ritual commodity. And this will vary by culture what exact item is going to be used in most of the rituals. Ayahuasca is a hallucinogen, i.e. a substance that when ingested can cause hallucinations. It's fairly well known in the world in general, and it is used by some South American indigenous religions, but not by most. Specifically by some peoples in the Amazon and Orinoco River basin. So this would be, for example, in the countries of Brazil and Venezuela. The Urarina people are one people who use hallucinogens like ayahuasca. So ayahuasca proper is made from a plant called the Banisteriopsis caapi vine, which is macerated and boiled either alone or with other plants. And typically this results in numerous compounds, but including DMT, which is a psychedelic, and also harmala alkaloids, which function as monoamine oxidase inhibitors. I don't know exactly how this works physiologically, but they disrupt some enzymes, and so they alter the functioning of the brain, basically. And so what will happen is shamans will oversee a ceremony, which can last for multiple hours or overnight, in which a person ingests this substance and then experiences these hallucinations, which are interpreted as visions of spirits and gods and the like. So the Urarina also use another plant from the Brugmansia family, which can induce vomiting and hallucinations. But the thing to keep in mind is that most South American indigenous shamans don't actually use ayahuasca. So it does happen. It is a part of indigenous religion in South America. That's where modern knowledge of ayahuasca comes from. It's just not the majority of religions that are practicing it. Well, that's going to wrap up our introduction to South American indigenous religions. Next up is Chapter 11, Native North American religions. Until next time.